Houston is in fact a kind of a bellwether test case. I mean, we've had 24 inches of rain in 24 hours.
Welcome to The Switch. I'm Elena Casas. The built environment is responsible for about 39% of global carbon emissions, mostly from heating and cooling buildings, although the heavy energy use of steel and concrete means construction alone consumes around 11%. At the same time, traditional buildings are struggling to cope with the changing climate. Extreme temperatures have sent energy bills soaring, and tens of thousands of Americans have found their homes are no longer insurable due to the risk of flood or wildfire. Well, Gensler is one of the world's biggest building design firms, and its global resilience research lead, Rives Taylor, joins me now. Reeves, hi. Now you're joining us from Houston, which has seen some intensely hot summers in recent years. How do we design for a much hotter climate?
We really need to learn to work from natural systems. Before we had fancy technology, the stuff that's what's called passive design is so important. That's about shading and dealing with sun and direct sun and recognizing that though we'll always have air conditioning, can we be far more effective in that energy use? First of all, we want to talk about literally where the building sits, the site. Shading. The whole notion is to keep the heat from where we live or have to work, and that's outside too.
Architects are increasingly using greenery not only around buildings but on roofs, as here at Gensler's refitting of the former main post office in Chicago. One study showed green roofs cooled the building below by 2 degrees Celsius on average, cutting power use by 23%. Plants also absorb rainwater, crucial as climate change brings not only higher temperatures, but record rainfall too.
The roofs can do the same thing, not only shade the building, they could be where we put solar photovoltaics at generating electricity, they could capture rain. So kind of the big umbrella is another technology that can help us knock down the heat gain in the building, which could help us reduce that scale of the air conditioning. Our site needs to collect the water that rains within the site and not flood your neighbor. And that may mean everything from bioswales, that is open, not ditches, but green spaces that collect water, rain capture through rain barrels. The roof exactly can be a very good catchment.
Flooding is the most common and the most expensive natural disaster in the US, while cities like Miami will be facing more than 30 days of high tides a year by 2050, according to the US government.
Unfortunately, we're looking at regular sea level, or what are called sometimes king tide hits. We don't want the utilities, whether it's water or power, to be inured or damaged. And so literally lifting. And number three, it's the discussion of how to handle that, not just water, but moving water. There's a mass to that water. How to handle that in the lobbies, etc. Historically, in Galveston, they literally lifted up buildings many feet after the big hurricane in 1900. People's homes, we are now lifting the houses. I mean, insurability basically makes sure you're above the floodwater.
Some of America's biggest insurance firms will no longer insure homes in wildfire-prone parts of California or some of the parts of Florida that are most at flood risk. Does this beg the question, should we be building in some places at all?
We are not the ones to say no. We're the ones to say, let's make it work. And if the key is minimize human and material loss, obviously, but really it's business interruption. That's where the insurers in our part of the world particularly have taken a hit, which is businesses down for weeks because of energy or infrastructure or building issues. And so our goal to address that mitigation is get back to work quickly through preemptive resilience strategies.
The destruction wrought last week by Hurricane Helene showed a much wider swathe of the US is vulnerable to extreme weather than many had thought. Despite the challenges, Reeves says design can offer some solutions.
Houston is in fact a kind of a bellwether test case. I mean, we've had 24 inches of rain in 24 hours. What a great time to be a designer. This is a design problem that Homo sapiens sapiens, we're ready for it. It's going to be a challenge. It does take both design smarts, perhaps technology, though as I've said to you, I really like natural systems, passive design, behavior shift. It's not just how we design, but how we use.